In this video, I'll be sharing with you a tutorial on how to draft this stylish bustier dress with side ruche. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So to start, here's my pattern and we're going to start drafting from the upper part of the front pattern. So for the front part, you need your shoulder to bust, your shoulder to under bust, and your shoulder to waistline. So after marking that, the next step you want to mark is your shoulder divided by 2 plus half inch. My shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2, I have 7, plus half inch will give me 7. And then I'll come down by 1 inch. Now from that point, I'll place my ruler, connect this all the way to the tip of my pattern paper. The next step is to find your chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, and I'll make a mark at that point. I'll go ahead to place my ruler and I'll draw out a straight line. After marking this, I'm going to go ahead to place my tape and I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus half on the chest line. Now I'll place my ruler and draw out a straight line. After doing this, I'm going to go ahead to divide what I have here into 2 equal parts, come out by half inch here. Now I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line of this pattern. My bust is 33 divided by 4, I have 8.3 inches. That's roughly 8.3. I'll connect from the upper part of my shoulder to the half inch and down to my chest line. The next step is to go ahead to mark my dart. And to mark my dart, I'm going to use my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches, which I marked on the bust, on the under bust, and on the waistline of this pattern. So after I'm done marking that, the next step is to go ahead to mark my dart. I'll be using 1 inch dart intake for my dart. For a plus size or somebody that has bust, you use 1.5, right? So I'll go ahead to connect those marks that I made and I'll also connect at the other side. Now after I'm done connecting, I'm going to place my ruler, connect from the under bust all the way to the bust, also connect from the under bust to the bust area. So after this, I'll outline my pattern. After outlining your pattern, you want to decide where your bustier pattern will start. So I'm using 2 inches above my chest line and I'll draw out a straight line. After I'm done marking that, I'm going to go ahead to mark my neckline. I'll mark out a basic neckline of 3 inches. Starting from that neckline, I'll place it to the shoulder, then divide what I have there into 2 equal parts and mark. I'll place my ruler and I will connect to the bust point of my pattern. Now after I'm done marking this, I'm just going to go ahead to mark a dart intake of 1 inch on both sides of that part. So if you're plus size, you should be using 1.5 or mark 1 inch here and then mark 2 inches on this other side. But my bust is not that big and I'm using 1 inch on both sides of my pattern. Now after I'm done connecting, I'll use my marker to outline. At the top of my pattern, I'm going to mark around 1.5 inches, which I later extended. So after marking, I felt the 1.5 inches was small, so you can use 2 inches for yours. Now I'll just go ahead and connect. While connecting, I'll just leave a little line here at this point so that it will help me connect it to the other side of my pattern, right? Something that is very small at this point of my pattern so that I'll join it to the other side. So I'll just go ahead to outline. After outlining my pattern, the next step I'll take is to insert my body measurements. At the bust, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now I'll go ahead and pick this that I have at the over bust because I want my pattern at the back and at the front to match. Then I'll just go ahead to add my sewing allowance on this pattern. Now on the under bust, I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add my sewing allowance. Here I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and then add my sewing allowance. After I'm done connecting, the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to place and connect. Now after connecting this pattern, I'll also go ahead to mark my bust dart. To find your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17 inches while my shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5. So if you minus 15.5 from 17, you will have 1.5, which I marked as my dart, and I'll go ahead to shed it out. So I'll just go ahead and outline my pattern. So after I'm done outlining, we are done with drafting of the front pattern. Next is to cut out my pattern, and while cutting, blend out your dart and then go ahead to cut out the rest of your pattern. So if you have anywhere you don't understand, go ahead to leave your question at the comment section, and I'll go ahead to cut this out, and after that we'll proceed to the back pattern of this dress. Now for the back pattern, I've gone ahead to mark out all the basic measurements we need. Here's the zipper, and here's my shoulder divided by 2 plus half. Found the chest line just like we did for the front, and here is my shoulder to bust. Then my shoulder to waist at the front is 15.5, which is 1.5 inches shorter than that of the front, and I have a zipper allowance at the front of this pattern. Now the next step is to go ahead to mark my dart. I'll start by marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2. After I'm done marking that, I'm going to go ahead to place my ruler and draw a straight line. For my dart intake, I'll mark ½ inch on both sides of my pattern. Then go ahead to place my ruler, and I'm going to connect this all the way up and also connect at the other side of my pattern. Now after I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to insert my body measurement. At the bust, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll go ahead to add a sewing allowance to it by the side. Now mark your waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and also add your sewing allowance. After you're done marking that, go ahead to place your ruler, connect from the waist all the way up. Now let's work on the shoulder of this dress. So remember I used like 1.5, and I said when you're marking yours, please make sure you use like up to 2 inches or 2.5 for the shoulder part. Then I'll go ahead to connect on this pattern. After I'm done connecting, I'll mark ½ inch here. This is to get rid of the bulginess at the back of the zipper of your dress. Now you can replace this ½ inch by the side of your pattern, that is by the side of the waistline, after you're done taking it out. Now I will go ahead to extend this all the way up, and I'll also go ahead to outline the chest line of my pattern. Now the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to come down by ½ inch from the chest line, and I will connect. This is because I don't want the back to be popping up. Now just go ahead to outline. So when you're making this dress, if you join your sleeve, it might gape. Now the best way to tighten it is by joining your shoulder by 1 inch instead of joining it like 0.5 inches. That way you will tighten the shoulder part of your pattern. Now I'll just go ahead to cut this out, and after cutting this out, we'll go ahead to work on the lower part of this dress. So after cutting out, I'll go ahead to blend out my dart and cut this out as one piece. Now for the lower part, I'll be cutting this in a miniature size. So first of all, fold your pattern into 2 this way. So let's say this is your material. What you're going to do is to go ahead to measure the actual length of your dress, right? Now if you mark that, for this dress, remember it has like a ruche which might drag up the skirt, so you can go ahead to add an extension like extra or few inches to your skirt, something that is not that much. So this is the waistline of the skirt, this is the hip line, and I'll go ahead to mark. So for your hip measurement, it is 7 inches after your waistline. For a much taller person, please go ahead to use 8 inches. right? So after marking these points out on the upper part, I'll go ahead to mark my waist circumference and then add the sewing allowance. Let's say this is the waist circumference and I've added the sewing allowance. Going to the hip part, you will not use your exact hip measurement because the skirt is meant to be slightly free on your body so that you can easily create that ruche or pleat effect by the side. So you can add extra 2 inches to your actual hip measurement and add your sewing allowance. Deduct like 1 inch from your actual measurement, that is the measurement on the hip, and mark all the way down. Then you will now connect from the waist to your hip point and to that extra extension you added at the lower part. For the extension, you can just add like 2 to 5 inches so that by the time you drag up your skirt will not shorten at the lower part. Then after cutting this out, you're going to use this to cut out the back pattern. And to cut out the back pattern, what you're going to do is to go ahead to add like a zipper allowance. Place your pattern on another fabric, add a zipper allowance of 2 inches or 1.5. Now after cutting that, let's say that you're done making your dress and you have joined your dress. Now we are going to work on the ruche part of the skirt or the pleated part. Now what you're going to do is on the side of your skirt, you're going to go ahead to take like your needle and thread and sew. Or if you don't want to use your needle and thread, go above your hip point and then you're going to create pleats by the side. So I'm using a pattern paper to do this, so it's slightly difficult for me to like fold the paper without it rumpling this way. Now what you have to do is like pick that side that you want to create that ruche or gathered effect. You can use your needle and thread or you can pleat. What we have there looks like a slight pleat, so you can just go towards the side and then pleat. After pleating, you're going to go ahead to use your pin to hold it down by the side. Now this ruche now you're doing is on the front part of the skirt and not at the back. Now after you're done pleating, you're going to go ahead to place this on a sewing machine and you're going to run a stitch there, because if you look at this ruche we have on the actual dress, you notice that it was actually top stitch at the front part of this dress. And make sure that whatever ruche or pleat effect you have is above your hip towards the waistline. So I'm using a pattern paper just to illustrate this part, and it might not really give the effect a fabric will do.